Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about the first winter storm of the season. Now this is the same storm that I talked about in my previous video a few days back. The difference is that I decided to call it a winter storm because there are winter storm warnings up across the mountains, across Montana, Wyoming, winter weather advisories. So yes, if you're watching this thinking you'll be seeing snow across the plains, unfortunately, no. This is going to be a storm that brings snow mainly to the mountains, but it's the first one of the year, so it's the first winter storm. It's not a absolutely monster storm. It's not a massive one. It is a powerful one, potent. It's going to have some severe weather potentially during the week next week, as I'll show you this giant cold front that drags along. And it brings a little bit of cooler air, but doesn't really break the current pattern we're in, so that's going to be interesting. And as you can see up above me, we have a really quiet across much of the United States right now. The National Weather Service map, which is further above my head, is also very quiet aside from the northwest where we have that winter storm brewing. So let me start off by looking at the GFS model. So this is what I have currently pulled up, and we're looking at the MSLP and precipitation map. So millimeters per hour. So this basically shows us where the precipitation is falling and how heavily it will be falling. And notice that right now what we have is pretty quiet, again, as I mentioned, across much of the United States, across the central and eastern United States. And the reason for that is we have a really strong high pressure. All high pressures spin clockwise, so as you can see, this high pressure being centered across the eastern United States is essentially creating a giant area combined with this low pressure, a very strong winds here, and that's wicking all the moisture towards the north, keeping these areas dry, and it's allowing for this system to develop. Now note that as I put this forward, we have precipitation developing across Utah. So this is now into Saturday. You can see the timestamp at the very far right corner of the screen, and that is where this current map is showing us at what time. So this is Saturday, early Saturday morning, what the GFS thinks the precipitation layout will look like in terms of accumulated precipitation. Notice that there will be rainfall across Idaho, Wyoming, the mountainous areas. Now notice that the low pressure is at 1001 millibars, so it's not really that strong yet. It does begin to intensify. Notice that by even 1 p.m. or 7 p.m. it moves out into the plains, the low pressure. So this is tomorrow, and we have the low pressure hitting the 990s, which is, again, already a formidable storm. Notice there isn't much of a cold front attached to it, but there is a lot of precipitation across Wyoming, Montana, into British Columbia, Alberta. A lot of these areas are very dry, so this will be extremely well-needed precipitation. Elsewhere, again, dry. A little bit of rain and potentially even some heavy rain across maybe Louisiana, New Orleans, and Florida, some showers. As we put this into Sunday and Sunday evening and afternoon, notice that this thing really spins up, and there is quite a bit of snow, again, as I mentioned, across Wyoming. The Yellowstone Plateau, you guys will be potentially, I mean, there's not really much people living there, but whoever is visiting and whatnot, there will be potentially up to 2 feet of snow across some of the areas in the mountains, across into Glacier National Park, potentially seeing some snowfall as well. Notice a lot of precipitation in the form of rain across the Dakotas. If it wasn't for the fact that this fall is so warm, maybe that would have been snow, but again, we just have been seeing an absolute lack of cold air. And notice that as this thing moves into Sunday, into during the day, we see the snow lingering across the mountainous northwest, while the low pressure itself kind of juts out and moves away pretty quickly. Quite a bit of heavy precipitation potentially across Alberta, into Manitoba, Saskatchewan, the plains, into the Dakota area, into Minnesota. Notice there isn't going to be much of a cold front with this. You know, sometimes and usually with these powerful fall systems, there's a cold front. Not always, and this is a perfect example of that. Note that the precipitation across again, Wyoming and Idaho, eastern Idaho, southern Montana, northeastern Utah only really stops around early, potentially Monday morning. So that's going to linger for a while. And do note that by then we do potentially have a cold front developing across the central United States. This could be falling in a form of thunderstorms, this could be forming in a form of thunderstorms. It won't be raining thunderstorms. That would be crazy. But note that this is directly associated with that system, which at this point is already well off into Labrador and Newfoundland, but it's dragging a cold front that is potentially thousands of miles across the United States. And there is a little bit of cool air behind it, which drags really, I mean, if you're across the eastern United States, it's been warm, and the last few days have been really warm, and it's gonna peak in the next few days. Here in my area in Chicago, it's almost 90 degrees tomorrow, which for early October is definitely very warm. And note that the 540 line, the freezing line, stays pretty much well north of the U.S. border, so very far towards the north. We have quite some heavier potential banding of precipitation as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, and that allows a cold front to sweep with some rain across the northeast and eastern United States, where it has been dry. It's been a very, very dry and warm fall, which, not trying to brag, I did predict for the eastern United States across in my fall forecast outlook in August. So that's, I'm glad it has happened. But as I mentioned, the pattern after this won't really fall apart. Notice that a massive high pressure moves in, so a little bit of cooler air. But just to quickly go forward, I'll go and talk about this system back in just a second, but I just kind of want to give you an outlook here. But you can see that during the week, the next week, right, aside from that cold front and that system that moves away, maybe some precipitation across the plains. Again, boring. Maybe not as much of a heat wave. You can see there aren't the little black lines aren't oriented in a way that would support a massive heat wave. They're kind of forming these little odd circles, odd shapes, essentially showing and just saying that there isn't any flow of air in either way. So no real heat, no real warmth. We have been in a warm pattern, so it will be probably above average, just not to the extent like we will be seeing out ahead of this out ahead of this large system across the northwest. But as we continue to get troughing across the western United States and heat and a southwest flow, any system that comes by will have the potential to develop into a very heavy system. The models have been going back and forth. You could see that currently the GFS shows some sort of a system around October 13th with a very snowy side across southern Canada. The models have been dancing around. Right now what I'm doing is clicking through the different model runs that showed. So today in the morning, this is what the GFS showed at that same exact time frame. You could see a completely different setup. Same with this one, completely different setup. So it's all over the place, but the models have been consistently showing little troughs coming in and a strong southwest flow, allowing these systems to potentially develop into a really large system. There just hasn't been enough cold air for that. So we'll see whether or not this pattern maintains itself long enough till we get more cold air and these systems really blow off. Because right now we are in a pattern that is supportive of large storms. It's just that it needs more of a baroclinic zone. We have the heat, we just don't have the cold side. So as I mentioned, there will be snow with this system. This is the GFS outlook, which, by the way, is a little bit more aggressive compared to the European. The European doesn't show as much snowfall, but notice that, again, even the GFS, it keeps it towards the mountainous areas. Though in some areas, again, you could see the little greens popping up. That means over 12 inches of snowfall. So definitely a decent system. In terms of precipitation, you can see that the rain shield is definitely a little bit more broad and affects a lot more areas. Again, pretty decent amounts across Wyoming, Montana. Hopefully that maintains and doesn't, dissipate in the forecast the next few days, as again a lot of these folks need rain. North Dakota also picking up on a decent bit, and into portions of Ontario and Manitoba picking up or Saskatchewan, I should say, picking up a very good amount of rainfall, and it looks as if it will be pretty widespread. Now, as I put this forward into midweek of next week, you can see that cold front that develops across the central United States will also bring some rain for the eastern United States, which will be very good as these areas have been dry. Note there could be some very heavy rain across New Orleans during this time. So now quickly I want to show you the high resolution model. What I just showed you was GFS, which was a good look since I wanted to combine that system and long range outlook for you guys. But now I want to show you kind of just the next 48 hours, as I will be making update videos on this as I can during this weekend. Notice that right now, in an immediate future, next 12 hours, there will be rainfall occurring and developing with more intensity across Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, definitely bringing those showers and rains that the GFS model was showing. And you can see that her model actually, what it's showing is what it thinks the radar will look like. So it's a lot more, accurate in terms of what you will be seeing on a radar. The GFS, what I was showing you was just accumulated precipitation. And again, some of these will be pretty vicious little bands. Notice that the herd model by tomorrow morning really shows some decent, potentially even thunderstorm activity across Salt Lake City, Logan, Utah. There definitely could be a bit of precipitation there that, you might wake up with a rumble of thunder. Notice across Colorado, Wyoming, Cheyenne, right, you guys also will be seeing some activity. And by tomorrow during the day, we start this thing develop into an actual circulation. You can see that the showers are now developing in a more circular motion, and we actually potentially develop, again, very heavy snow across Yellowstone. So that will be interesting to see. And this thing slowly moves out into the plains and develops into our first large fall system that we've seen of this magnitude. And interestingly, the Her model actually shows more snowfall than the GFS and shows potentially up to a foot, even 2 feet of snow. And the last thing I want to show you is the temperature anomalies. As you can see, the GFS shows a lot of heat out ahead of this, as do all the models. But again, as I mentioned, with this system, there won't be a massive cool down. It seems as if it will disrupt the heat of extreme quantities that has been occurring, but the heat will come back, and it still honestly might bounce back to being pretty warm. And the sustained cold seems to be a little bit more elusive. But again, I did expect October to be very warm, so I only think that the sustained more cold will be either in the back half of October or into November. Alright, so that's basically it for today's video, guys. I appreciate you watching. I'll catch you on the next video. See ya. Bye.